Hello, Eudora. Good to see you. So,
Hello, Emma.
you've become a Quaker prison chaplain in the last few months, and the whole process of discernment took about a year. So, tell me about that.
Well, to be honest, I've been aware of Quaker prison chaplains for a long time, but I really didn't give them much sort of notice. I sort of got on with other things. And it was only sort of about 4, 5 years ago, I was watching a documentary called The Work, which is about prison in America and people doing work and prisoners doing work in the prison to look very much at why they were there and how they can sort of change things within themselves in order to step out differently. And when I watched it, I almost fell off the sofa. I knew, and in that instant, Quaker Prison Chaplaincy was for me. I just knew it. And fortunately, I had a very good friend. I have a very good friend who is a Quaker prison chaplain. So we spent many an evening, many a meal talking about what it actually involves, what it's really about, the nuts and bolts. And he would tell me different scenarios of things that could happen, and we'd talk about what that means, what that would look like. And I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversations and kept bringing them up, saying, "Oh, let's talk more about this." So I just knew deep down in my belly this was for me. But it's a long road. Knowing this and actually becoming a chaplain, that's a long road. And I know a lot of people give up.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's you need patience for this, don't you? So, tell me about the kind of the community you had, and you know your involvement with Quakers leading up to this. Then,
So I've been involved in Quakers pretty much most of my life. I was fortunate enough as a child to have a Quaker headmaster, and I guess that sort of set me on the right path of, or I don't know about right path, but set me on a path that kind of is that I hold true to myself, which is he would say to all the teachers, when you speak to pupils, speak to them as though they have already become the best version of themselves.
mm.
And that's what I do in life. I try to speak to people as though they are already the best version of themselves. And that's very much how I see it in prisons, that we Quakers have that chance of walking along a tightrope. On one hand, we're holding the truth, what occurred, why they're there, because there are reasons, real reasons why someone's in prison, choices, life choices that they've made, life circumstance, that sort of thing. But at the other hand, holding that of God or the good in the person, and to hold both truths when communicating lightly, I think it's a real gift that we Quakers have.
Yeah, yeah. So, so how long did the process take roughly? I mean, what was it like for you becoming? Because you've only just actually got in there, so there's
Yeah.
been quite a long process of getting yourself ready, perhaps in terms of, processes, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Yes, so it has taken a long time, quite a few years. COVID didn't help at all, and I also during the process of applying and sort of being able to become a chaplain because you can't be overnight.
Mm.
When I saw the documentary, I would have loved to turn up the next day, but you can't. I also became very ill and nearly died, and that sort of puts things into sharp focus. So yes, it it takes time. Patience needs to be your friend, but frankly, it's good practice it's good to practice patience before you go into prison because let me tell you, that's what you need probably the most in prison, patience, because you cannot plan anything. It takes on a life of its own as you enter into a prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it took a long time. Um, but it's step by step. My advice to anyone who wants to apply is so obviously patience, but find other Quakers because I think there's 120 prisons and Quakers are in 91 of them or something like that. So, there are a lot of chaplains out there. find some, ask them for help because they've all been through this process of applying. Yes,
Mm,
it does take a long time. Yes, the forms are complicated, but just
mm,
ask. And
yeah,
actually, through asking, you then start building up a network because that is essential. It's not easy. You experience all sorts of different things. You question yourself. And I would say what's fundamental is to be grounded within yourself, to be grounded within your Quaker community, however you find that, and then also to know other chaplains because then you can just ask for help. So
mm.
that would be my recommendation.
So what was it like for you the first few times you went inside?
Well, the first few times, and I did try it before I applied because you can do that. So my friend who is a chaplain brought me along. In fact, we had a busman's holiday and tried out a few different prisons, which was quite good fun. When I say fun, it's sort of very interesting to compare how different prisons are. And what people say, the chaplains that I've spoken to of all denominations, what they say is either you go there and you know, either it's for you or it isn't. It's very quick. And I just knew, yes, it's for me. The thing that shook me when I first started to look at going into prisons was, and I was really surprised by this. I went on the same day to see a men's prison and a woman's prison. And what I didn't expect was my reaction as I walked past the women's prison, the part where the women are pregnant and give birth. And yeah, I have to say I got quite choked up and that
Mm,
realization. So there, with prison, it's you, every so often the rug gets pulled from under you and you sort of get quite surprised by something that you didn't see coming and didn't think would catch you.
yeah, yeah. So what do you think it takes then as people who might feel that they are called to this? What kind of behaviors or traits or coping mechanisms or preparation, before you go in, what do you think we rely on?
So this is where I think Quakers are particularly fortunate because we talk about going in with our hearts and minds prepared, and we do that with everything we do. And that skill of actually not just stumbling into something, but actually preparing. So before I go into prison, I'll go for a wild swim in the local pond, or I will do a meditation, or I'll definitely have made sure that I've gone to meeting just sort of a few days before. That sort of thing to just really prepare yourself, prepare your heart, prepare your mind, I think is essential. I also think because because Quakerism is steeped in a history of going to prisons. I mean, the first Quakers, we were in and out of prison all the time. Um, it is really sort of one of the cornerstones of Quakerism,
Mm,
really, very important, and also that ability to see that, as I said before, that the good in everybody, to hold that truth.
mm.
Thinking
Were you scared then? Were you scared at all?
the first time the first time I just thought, wow, it's very loud.
Mm,
Especially so I go to an old prison and the older ones are built in such a way that they're sort of they are much more open and so you can hear all the floors up you can hear what's going on so it's extremely loud.
mm,
Uh, so the first time it was frightening, but that was the first time. I've been having been in a few times. I sort of acclimatized. Uh,
mm, mm,
some people say that it takes them about 6 months to 9 months to acclimatize. It took me a lot quicker, but
mm,
I think that's because I've been in similar institutions before, so
yeah,
got it quicker. Mm.
yeah, that will help, won't it? Yeah. So, what kind of advice would you give then to not just the people who are considering this,
Yes.
but the people around them? I'm very aware that area meetings and groups of Quakers think, well, it would be great if we found somebody for that prison in our locality. What kinds of what kinds of advice do you have for for those Quakers who perhaps know that it's not for them, they're working full time or whatever, reason they don't want to do it themselves, what should they be looking for?
in somebody.
Hmm.
Um, it's this is not something that you just do because you want to give it a go. This I think this is a calling. So and certainly for me, I've started to go, and I know I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. Um, it it takes somebody who doesn't take themselves too seriously. I think you need to be able to have a bit of a laugh. So, for example, I go in, I go in wearing like really scruffy trainers, and I've had gang leaders sort of telling me how cool my trainers are. Now, I've never been cool in my life. I have to laugh when I have these sort of exchanges. So somebody who doesn't take themselves too seriously, somebody who is well resourced, knows how to resource themselves. So that's internally through meditation, through meeting, through connecting to nature, but also somebody who is very connected to their meeting or Quakers in some way. I think that's really fundamental because when something's tricky, if you know where to turn, I think that's part of the battle. That's then
Yeah,
you know what you're doing.
yeah.
And um, I think the person will know if
Mm.
it's there. There'll be a moment. I mean, certainly it was for me. There was a moment. Gosh, okay, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose that's what I'm hoping these videos will do actually is just help people think that through and know where to turn to for support from people like you and me, really. Just come and talk to us, isn't it? That's the message we want to get out there. If you think this is right for you, just start talking to people because it's these stories that will
Yes.
help you imagine yourself into the role and see how you would be in it.
Yes, and I mean, I think it's actually I think one of the things is to be clear why you're doing it. So I do this because if over 10 years there's been one prisoner that I've got to take a pause between something happening and them responding, just to take a little bit of a pause and it doesn't happen, that's one less person who doesn't, on the outside, who doesn't get hurt.
Mm,
That's
mm,
why I do it, so that my daughter is that little bit safer on the streets.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
think the why, what is the why behind why you're, doing this? And that,
yeah,
that, that for me is really important.
yeah. No, that's great. Well, thank you so much. Let's leave it there. Let's hope we generate quite a bit of interest.
I hope so, because I would love it if there were Quakers in every single prison in the country. I,
Mm,
I very much see that Quakers add a different flavor to chaplaincy. There's something we can offer that perhaps other chaplains can't because of our um, approach to prisons, because of our faith.
yeah,
So I do hope so.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.